Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls build video with me, Sherman. I know I've been releasing like build after build after build, but please bear with me, I have 9 others to show off. Well, 9 in total to show off. But starting with a new one today, we are going to be showing off the Black Death, which is a Dragon Knight stamina build. A lot of people don't no, well, first I want to explain the name. The reason it's called the Black Death, or it's called Black Death, is because in D&D terms, a black dragon would breathe poison or acid. And since the Dragon Knight stam builds, most of them use poison and stuff, it kind of carries into that, and that's why it's called this. So let's go ahead and jump right into the build, of course, as usual. And as you can see, very similar to my Stam Sork that I just released yesterday. It has 64 into stamina, but this one doesn't need the extra stam, so I got away with actually a little bit. Now you're going to see I don't have a high stam recovery with this build, and there's a reason why I don't have a high stam recovery with the build, and that is because I use a lot of heavy attacks with it, because it's more of a cleave damage AoE type person, and that's also why I use the two-handed weapon on the back bar, and on the front bar, and on the back bar I actually use a bow. And as you can see again with this, very similar to the Stam Sork, has a greater weapon critical and weapon damage on the bow side versus the two-handed side. It has greater weapon damage on the two-handed side. So let's go ahead and go over the stats. So I have a 10k Magicka. I only use one Magicka ability, very similar to Stam Sork again. And I do, it is a floater space, so I do use 2 different abilities there. It just depends on the situation or the dungeon or even the trial, if I do decide to play this in a trial. Now, I have not taken this build into a trial yet, but I have played it through a few of the dungeons on both vet and hard mode, or normal and vet and hard mode, and it works fine in them. It has some survivability issues, and that's because, as you can see, its resistances are really low on the physical side. But on the Magicka side, it's got a little bit higher magic resistance, or spell resistance. I have an 18k health, 34k stamina, and as you can see, I do have a 2788 weapon damage. It does go up pretty high, I will show you guys when it's buffed, and a 60% critical. We have a, excuse me, a 16k spell resistance with a 12k physical resistance. Sorry about all the coughing, guys. It is allergy season. You know, for me, my allergies carry all the way up until we get out of summer. So where I live in the desert. So, and that's because the dust here is just it's ungodly. So going down here, we do run the Thief Mundus Stone, and we do run 2-stat food. We run max health and max stamina food, and I'll get to exactly what food I do run when we get to that point. So, but this build is more of an area of effect than it is a pure dot damage build. So a lot of people that play stamina DPS, they use certain abilities. This one does, like, again, just like my Stam Sork, this is not a meta build. This is just a build I play for fun, and yes, it does work in pretty much all environments. It even works in PvP like this. I would suggest just switching out the gear to in-pin, you know, on a couple pieces. You don't really need to change it all, just a few pieces. So let's go ahead and take a look at the gear now. Going into the gear, and I know I didn't explain a lot of stuff on my Sork. I'll try to go a little bit more in depth on this. So over here we are running a 2-piece Mephalas set. Now the reason I'm running Mephalas is because Mephalas is actually a really powerful stamina DK stamina set, and that's because it does poison damage. And in fact, it does 1,421 poison damage every second for 10 seconds, and it also reduces the movement speed of the enemies by 50%. And this effect can be applied once every 10 seconds. So every 10 seconds, if I do a fully charged heavy attack, I reapply it. And that's kind of how the build works. It works kind of around this set, but not 100%. It's just a really good part of this set is that. So we are running an infused helm. I wish I had a divines on this and the shoulders. I wish I had divines, but unfortunately you go with what you can get, and then you get better as you go along. So I do run will be running these the dungeon for this, which this drops in Fungal Grotto 2, and it can be kind of a hard run for some people. But once you get the mechanics down of the dungeon, it's really easy to get by and to get this particular set. It's actually a pretty easy set to get. And you just need the helm, and I'm running it in medium. I am running the shoulders in medium as well. It's kind of a, like I said, it's kind of a different build type. But a really, really good set. I mean, that's it. It's just a good set to use on a DK. Whether you're a tank, DPS, or like a Stam DPS, this is like probably, to me, the best set a stamina DK can use, in my opinion. So on to the 5-piece set that we're running, of course, we are running a 5-piece Hunting's Rage. Now, I know my Stamsork runs the same thing, a 5-piece Hunting's Rage, but this has a little bit of a different setup. This is a heavy chest with a light belt, and everything else is medium here, so that we are running a 5-piece medium setup. Everything is divines, and then everything is enchanted with max stam. So everything is max stam on this, and it works out to a better setup in the long run, and it works out. Yeah, just to a better setup. We'll get to that. Next up, we're running 3-piece agility. All 3 pieces do have weapon damage. I think I might actually go with one of them, though, with a stam recovery, because I can give up 100 and that 160 weapon damage, because these two are going to go to 174 here soon, and I'll be fine with the rest of it the way it is. It works out again really well with this jewelry setup. If you do want to run a different set, and let's say you have a better set, I would suggest running, for dungeons at least, I think it's either Fang Snake or the Ophidian set, one of the two. Run that in 3-piece jewelry. Next up, I am using just a sword that I picked up, which is a great sword of endurance. It's sharpened. I went with this because I don't have the Maelstrom two-handed, or the Master two-handed. Actually, with this build, the Master two-handed would be better than the I think it's the Maelstrom one, or is it? It's one of the. I think it's either the Master one is better or the Maelstrom one. It's whatever does the increased damage to your cleave is going to be better for this build. And then I run a willpower bow. As you can see, it's golded out. I was running this on my tank, and I switched over to this character, and I switched the enchantment on it for a poison enchantment. Now I'm running two poison enchantments on this build, and again, because the DK gets extra damage from poison, is the reason, because it does increase even this poison damage, and it also gets increased through the champion points. So my character is a Dark Elf. I would suggest, if you were really going to play this build and wanted to minimax it, I would go with a Red Guard for it, or I would go with a Wood Elf. Much better options here for this than the DK, or the Dark Elf, sorry. So, moving on to the skills, because that's all the gear. We're going to take a look at the skills. Now, this is, again, kind of similar to my Stamsork, but it plays a lot differently than you might think. So, on the front bar, our main ability is Wrecking Blow. It is just a heavy hit, single target DPS thing. You don't use this too often, to be honest, because of the cast time. It's mainly for boss encounters to get damage going. Now, you can switch this out for Executioner Strike if you want to, so you do have an execute, because the one thing about this is this kind of setup is it doesn't have an execute. I didn't even realize I could do this. Oh, that's right, because I was debating on which one I want to go. I will always say this: go with Rally. On anything that you're playing that's a Stam DPS, go with Rally, because it gives you a boost of health every time you recast it. But in this case, you're going to go with Forward Momentum, because in Dungeons and Trials, even in Dungeons, having the ability to remove snares and immobilization from you and grants you immunity from them for 5 seconds is always going to be something you're going to want. when you're a mobile class like this one. You are constantly on the move. You're not standing still for too long. And so this forward momentum is a lot better option. So you're not getting slowed, you're not getting stunned, you're not getting those things while you're in the dungeon. And you really want something that's going to allow that. So I'm going to go ahead and morph it into that. And then, like I said, you can take this and take the Executioner Strike, because it is going to be the only way you're going to get an execute on this kind of a setup. So I would suggest going with Executioner Strike. Like I said, you do a lot more heavy attacks now with the two-handed because of Forceful, and as you can see with my Forceful, it does 67% extra damage to 3 extra targets and 100% to the main target I hit. So if I'm fighting 5 enemies, 3 of them are going to take 67% of the damage. 1 is going to take 100%, and the 5th one is not going to get hit at all. But it is a really nice way to apply damage. Next up, we are running Carve. I don't have this like completely maxed out because I was running Brawler instead because of the damage shield. But I decided to go with this one because of something else I'll get to in a minute. So run Brawler here, or Carve here, or Brawler, one of the two. I run this for the ultimate generation because DKs don't generate, well, this particular DK setup doesn't generate a lot of ultimate as much as I'd like. So it helps to build that ultimate to use Dawnbreaker. Dawnbreaker is your bread and butter for this, one of your bread and butter things for this build, because the DK does a lot of dot damage. So anytime you can apply a bleed, apply poison and things like that, you're going to want to. Right here we have Venomous Claw, and I do have this at max rank. As you can see, it does initial hit damage, and then it does a heavy dot damage afterwards for 10 seconds. And this thing can take up to 3 to 4k dot damage. It's really powerful. And it also does, the poison seeps into the target and deals increased damage the longer it lasts, dealing 12% more damage every 2 seconds. So every 2 seconds it's increasing in damage. So you apply this ability and leave it. You don't just sit and spam it. Apply it and leave it. Next up, of course, forward momentum. This is not only a heal for you, it also increases your weapon damage. I know a lot of people like to use potions for increased weapon damage. I use potions mainly to recover health if I get hit really bad or something. I don't like to use it for buffing and things like that. I prefer to just apply the buff and move on. So, and this one's a really good one for a two-hander user because it gives you all those extra benefits. It gives you the health over every 2 seconds. It gives you that ability to be immune to snares and stuff. So if it does come, if you do get applied to a snare or something, you can just recast this. It doesn't cost a lot. And like I said, you're using a lot of heavy attacks with this build. Next up on the back bar, we are running a bow. Oh, sorry, let me get back to the front bar because we do have Evil Hunter here. And that's just to increase our weapon critical and then Dawnbreaker. I already showed you why we have Dawnbreaker. And we do run Flawless Dawnbreaker for the extra weapon damage. And so onto the back bar, we are running Acid Spray. Again, like I said, this is the reason why this is called Black Death is because you do a lot of poison and acid damage. So you're just constantly applying poison damage and damage over time to the enemy. You just that's what the whole build's about, is just constantly applying that extra damage. Next up, Poison Arrow. I don't have Poison Injection yet because they made the change to the skills on the bow, and this would have already been unlocked for me into Poison Injection, but I would suggest going Poison Injection here. Now, this next spot is kind of a flex spot. These next two spots are flex spots for this build. You don't have to go with this setup, but I was running Trapping Webs because it is a really, really good ability if you know how to use it. Instead of running Trap Beast, because Trap Beast does increase your overall damage by 12% or 10% on your crit damage. This does another dot over time and is a little bit more effective for a DK to use. It doesn't do a dot over time. What it does is you apply it down. It's like a trap. Oops. So you apply it down and you'll see it shows those little things, and eventually they'll explode, doing a certain amount of poison damage to the enemy, and it's a pretty powerful poison damage ability. But I would suggest, if you're not using this, to go with the classes itself, Noxious Breath, because this is also a good dot. And it works out even better in the long run, but you have to be up close for it. So that's why I don't use this a lot. And I like that other one, the trap from the Undaunted line, because I can place this up to 28 meters away, I think it is. Yeah, I can place it up to 28 meters. It's got a long range, and it lasts for 5 seconds, and then it explodes. So I use this a lot in the boss battles. Now this next one, again, also a flex one. I run Green Dragon Blood. I don't run it for the heal. I run it because it gives you major endurance and minor vitality, and major fortitude, major endurance, and minor vitality, increasing your health recovery and stamina recovery by 20%, and your healing received by 8% for 23 seconds. That's the main reason why I do it, is so my healers have an easier way of keeping me alive. They can just cast it out there and put it on me. So let me go ahead into the next one, which a lot of people don't run also, and that is Corrosive Armor. For a DPS, this isn't maybe the best idea because of what it does, but it oxidizes your Green Dragon Blood in your veins, limiting incoming damage by 3% of your max health, which isn't much when your health is so low, but it's what it does next, and deals 1,264 poison damage to nearby enemies, each for 10 seconds. And while active, your attacks, all your attacks, ignore all physical resistance. So while this is for 10 seconds, you can just apply damage, and it's going to ignore all their physical resistance. It's a really good one to have. It costs 200 ultimate, and this is one of the reasons why I went with Carve and everything. So it's a really, really good ability. We also have Evil Hunter here as well to increase our crit. Now, that one flex spot right here, what I usually do if I don't feel like running this, I actually run Hardened Armor. And I run Hardened Armor because it's just a really good way to mitigate damage for you. And it really does kind of put you in the same place as a Stam Sword, because when you apply it, you get extra resistances, and you get a small damage shield for a certain amount of time. And with that extra resistances, it does increase your survivability and everything. Not something I would suggest running in some dungeons, because some dungeons you really don't need the extra resistances. But in a lot of dungeons, you do need some extra resistances and extra survivability. So either one of these is really good, especially if your healer is really good. You can go with this and be a lot more effective. So let's go ahead and run down the rotation here. So, of course, we start with our buffs. And then I usually start with Acid Spray, Poison Injection, Drop My Trap, Brawler, Carve, this, Heavy Attack, and you'll see the thing pop up there. And it's already doing its damage. And usually even most of the time I can't even get that much damage, that many hits off before most enemies are dead. And in a group setting where you're fighting in a dungeon or something, and you're fighting a lot of enemies, we're gonna go ahead and do the usual, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and grab up these enemies, and we're gonna go ahead and get them all built up. For this purpose here, we're going to apply that, and usually this is what I do, because this thing does a lot of damage and everything, and if you can get it off, a heavy attack off right on those guys, it'll hit all of them with that poison damage. So it's a really, really good, it's just a good dot damage build. So if you start with like something like this, see how it applied that dot? And they're already getting hit by all that poison, so... These things are immune to poison, by the way. Did you guys know this? These dogs are immune to poison. They have a high poison resistance. I didn't know that. I learned that the other day when doing what I was doing. So, mammoths do not have a high poison resist, so I can actually go over here and fight this mammoth. Show you guys that again. So what we'll do is we'll start with a heavy attack. Go ahead. And you don't have to do 2 heavy attacks like that. I just did the 2 heavy attacks just to kind of show you guys. Try to keep the dot from this heavy attack applied as much as you can. It's really important to keep that dot up so you can get that extra damage in there and bring those enemies down a lot quicker. And it really helps with group play. So next up, we're going to go take a look at the elusive champion point setup. Now, I don't have some points spent, but that's because I'm actually saving a lot of my points until I get everything maxed out. Once I get everything maxed out, I'll just finish off placing points. So starting with the red tree, the steed, we are going to put 23 in Ironclad. Now, the reason I put 23 in here is to increase my damage reduction against direct damage abilities. 10%. Next up, we have 16 into medium armor focus, 16 into spell shield. Now, you don't have to put these 16 points into these if you don't want to. I did it just because, and here's another thing. There is no jump points in resistances. The only place you get jump points is in things like that have percentage values. So this does not give you a jump point. So you can go with the 1554 and you'll get the maximum results out of it. Next up, 43 into Hardy, 43 in Elemental Defender. As you can see, both of these give you 10% reduced cost from, or reduced damage. 23 into Thick Skin, reducing the damage you take from damage over time. Now, these two, like this, direct damage, stacks with these two. This stacks with these two. And this also stacks with those two. So, if you have your Elemental Expert and you have it up, I think it's 16 points. Yeah, 16 points. It'll give you 10% also. This is the only area where I'm not saving points. But it'll give you 16 points, sorry. In here will give you 10% as well, and from light and heavy attacks, which is funny, because that light and heavy attacks also stacks with this direct damage, so that's 10%, 10%, that's 20%, and this is another 10%, making it a total of 30% reduced damage that you're going to take from damage from any light and heavy attacks. So it's a very nice setup to have, and it just helps. This will help you with 10%, and this helps you with 10%, so it's 20% in damage over time. And if the initial hit of the thing is a direct damage, it also reduces it by that much. So the initial hit's reduced by 30%, and the damage over time is reduced by 10 or 20%. So just letting you guys know. Over here, I would suggest 16 in Elemental Expert if you have it, and 20 or 19 into Quick Recovery. Always put into Quick Recovery now with the new changes to healing. You just need the extra effect on your on yourself and everything, because you don't have anywhere else to get it. So this 19 points really helps, and of course you can see it just gives you 5.22%. And me being a DK, I get extra healing received for casting my Green Dragon's Blood, plus another 8% from it, plus 5%. So I get a lot of healing received, so people can burst heal me really easy. It's really nice. So next up into the green tree, we have 23 into Warlord, reduces your break free cost by 10%. 16 into Sprinter, reducing your sprint cost by 10%. The way that they did the changes too, where they front loaded everything, it makes it a lot easier to spread your points out and put them into different areas. So that's the main reason why I've done this. Next up, 43 into Mooncalf, 43 into Tenacity. Mooncalf for stamina recovery. I am wearing 5 pieces of medium, so I get a really good stamina recovery, but I'm a Dark Elf, so it doesn't really help that much, to be honest, unless I cast my Green Dragon's Blood. Then I get that extra 20%. Next up, I have 43 in Tenacity. Again, your heavy attacks do return stamina, so this is a good way to keep your stamina pool built up by doing throwing heavy attacks in there. And since that build does apply that poison damage with a heavy attack, this is a really good way to get those resources back. Next up, we have 11 into Shadow Ward, giving us 5% block reduction, 56 into Tumbling, reducing our dodge roll, because as a DPS, Stam DPS, you do a lot of moving out of red circles, and because you just don't have the resistances to survive hits and stuff. So this helps also because it reduces the dodge roll cost, and you can dodge roll a lot more effectively with a 40% in total with the medium armor. Going into the blue tree, we have nothing here, but over here is where it starts. We have 16 into Physical Weapon Expert, giving us 10% increased damage to our light and heavy attacks. 56 into Master at Arms gives us exactly 20% extra damage. We have 56 on the Thaumaturge, again, an exactly 20%. 20 into Precise Strikes. I'm going to go ahead and just take this up to 23 to give us that 10%. And this is where the point allocation really stops here. you can literally just dump the rest if you want into piercing, because there's no other place you really need to put anything, unless you want to go over here and you want to put in a blast or you know, something. But you don't really need it for this build, because the rest of your damage is damage over time, and then it is, on top of that, it is poison damage. So 43 points in here, it gives you exactly the 10%, and the jump space, you know, the jump points that everyone talks about, it just doesn't do any good to put anything above this. So that's why I said after this point, everything should just put it into precise. You're not using anything to break anyone's armor. You're using just to sharpen weapons. So getting that extra physical penetration in there for your character is going to make the damage you do a lot better. And that is pretty much it for the champion points. I'm going to go ahead and lock those in place. As you can see, I do have 4 points sitting here I could put to somewhere, and honestly, this is where things get a little weird for this build, because you don't really have any place to put them, you know, other than maybe Shadow Ward, blocking, things like that, you know. I mean, it really doesn't help to put the points anywhere. So whatever you want to do with these green points, just do whatever you want with them when you get there. And that is it for the Black Death build. I tried to come up with a better name for it, you guys, like the Black Adder, but that didn't sound right. I tried like Black Dragon. I might even just call it the Black Dragon build, to be honest. I think that's a much better sounding one. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Black Dragon. So it's now the Black Dragon. It's no longer the Black Death. It's a Black Dragon. But yeah, it's a really cool, you know, DPS build. Like I said, there's some play in there. If you want to run the meta setup, you can. You know, it's not like going to be a major issue. You just need to change out some of this stuff to make it more based on the meta, and you can do that, and you can get away with it if you want to run the meta skill setup. But I think that the way it's set up, it works fine. You know, like I said, it's all about applying dots. It's not about trying to burst as much damage as possible. It's about applying the dots and then heavy attacking to keep your resources full, and then going and applying dots, and then resources or heavy attacks, and then applying dots, heavy attacks, applying dots. It's all about just applying the dots with this build and keeping them up. So as soon as you see a dot drop, reapply it. Reapply it. Don't go in a rotate. This is not a rotational build, except for at the beginning. Once you get the dots applied, after that point, it is all about just a matter of how you can keep those dots applied consistently. Oops. Wrong one. And it just keeping them up. That's it. It's just about keeping up those dots. As soon as a dot comes off, reapply it. And just keep it applied. This is the why this build sets it apart from a lot of others, is it's not set on a rotation. It's set on a rotation in the beginning, and after that it's about just applying. So the rotation, again, just so you guys know, either this and this and this, and then move over here to apply Carve, Venomous Talons, and then if you have it, Flawless Dawnbreaker. And usually by the time you apply Flawless Dawnbreaker, they're taking a ton of damage over time. In fact, you can't even calculate it by screen view that's going up on the side of your crosshairs. So, but it's a really fun build. I like this build. I've been playing it ever since I set this character to this build, and I took him out of being a fire DPS. I have just fallen in love with it. I can't even think about going back to the fire DPS build. So, but really cool build. So that's it for the Black Dragon, guys. I do want to thank you all for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. If you want to see more videos by me, hit that subscribe button. Also greatly appreciated. I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day, and I will see you all later. Bye.